Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV screen to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay. Well, let's learn English together. And we're back in the studio, back here with Steve Austin and Oscar Goldman. No, we're not. That's a little white lie. They're not here in the studio with us. It's just me and the rest of the crew. Sorry, Steve and Oscar couldn't make it today. Oh well, never mind. We'll just have to make do without them. Okay. And so, on we go. On with what? You all know, don't you? Yes, that's right. It's on with the show. The show must go on, even if Steve Austin and Oscar Goldman couldn't make it. Okay, so, back to today. And it's revision time again. Let's revise some of the things we learned in the last few weeks. Are you ready? Set? Then let's go. Okay, so yesterday we started by looking at obligation and the language we use when we're talking about obligation, requirements and necessity. We normally use two forms in English for strong requirement, have to and must. Must is simpler. We don't have to conjugate anything. It's the same form for all subjects. But even if it's simpler to use, it's more dangerous. We can easily offend people and cause problems. So I say, follow the golden rule. Use must with ourselves and use the other English form for strong requirement, have to, when we're talking about other people. Okay, so have to is the other form we use in English when we're talking about strong obligation. With have to, we have to conjugate, but that's no big deal. We know we have to be careful with the third person singular form of the verb to have, and so, when we use have to, we change to has to when we're talking about the third person singular. Not so difficult, is it? No. In fact, for us, gods of English, it's easy. We know that we use have to for I, you, we, you and they. And we know that we use has to for he, she and it. Simple. Great, fab, okay, OJ, PJs, PG tips, the GNU. Okay, so what else do we have to remember? Well, we have to remember that when we add not to the two forms for strong obligation, we get two very different results. When we add not to must, we get must not or mustn't. We always prefer the short version. Now, when we look at mustn't, we can see that it's the logical opposite of must. I must do this means that there is a strong obligation to do this. If I don't do it, there will be trouble. With mustn't, we have the same idea, just in the opposite direction. If I mustn't do this, then there is a strong obligation not to do this. If I do this, there will be trouble. Okay? All clear? Yes, of course. Now, the strange change comes when we add not to have to. For a start, we have to use the verb to do. We can't just throw not in and hope for the best. No. No, we use the verb to do to make sentences with have to when we add not. We use the form of do plus not plus have to. This means that we get I do not have to, and we all know that we prefer the short version. So we get I don't have to. So, as we know we have to conjugate with have to, we change the rest of the forms as we need to. We use don't have to for I, you, we, you and they. And we use doesn't have to for he, she and it. Simple. Okay, the form is simple enough, but the meaning changes when we go from have to don't, doesn't have to. The meaning of have to is clear. There is strong obligation. You have to do this. There will be trouble if you don't. When we change to don't, doesn't have to, all obligation is removed. It just vanishes. It disappears. So, when we add not to the idea of have to, we get a strange result. Now there is no obligation. If someone says to you that you don't have to do something, then they're telling you that the decision is yours. You can do it if you want, or you can not do it. It's entirely up to you. Okay, this isn't difficult to remember, but we need to pay attention so that people understand what we want them to do and what we don't want them to do. Another thing we have to be careful of is the fact that must only exists in the present. If we want to talk about a strong obligation in the past, we have to rely on have to. Only this time, because we're talking about the past, we have to conjugate the verb to have so that it shows the past. Have to becomes had to. Okay, but this is also very simple. When we use had to, we know that we don't have to change anything. We use the same form for every subject. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they, had to. Simple. Okay, now after we checked the idea of strong obligation, we decided to have a look at something else, didn't we? That's right, we had another gander at comparative and superlative adjectives, didn't we? Now, with regular, short adjectives, we made the comparative form by adding er to the end of the adjective. When we want to make the superlative form from short adjectives, then we put the in front of the adjective and add est to the end. So the superlative form for the adjective cheap is the cheapest, and the superlative form for the adjective old is the oldest. Now, just like comparatives, if the adjective ends in vowel plus consonant, then we double the last letter before adding est. So the comparative form for hot is hotter, and the superlative form is the hottest. If the adjective ends in y, then, just like with the comparative form, we replace the y with iest. So happy becomes happier in the comparative form and the happiest in the superlative form. Good. Now, what about longer adjectives? What do we do there to create the superlative form? Correct, a monkey see, monkey do. When we make the comparative form of longer adjectives, those adjectives with more syllables, then we don't change the adjective, but we put the word more in front of the adjective. This way, we can talk about the fact that Michael Dudikoff is not dangerouser than Jean-Claude Van Damme, but he is more dangerous than Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, to make the superlative form of longer adjectives, we also don't change the adjective, but with the superlative form, we put the most in front of the adjective. So now we can say that Michael Dudikoff is more dangerous than Jean-Claude Van Damme. And we can say that everybody knows that Chuck Norris is the most dangerous man in the universe. Okay, now back to reality. Let's see if we can make the comparative and superlative forms of the following adjectives. Great. Now, what answers did you get? Okay, let's check them all together. Old, older, the oldest. Simple. Good. Big, bigger, the biggest. Again, very good. But did you remember the change in spelling? That's right, chickens. Because the adjective big ends in vowel plus consonant, we have to remember to double the last letter. So, there is one G in big, but in bigger and the biggest, there are two Gs. And the next one? Well, that's very similar. Sad becomes sadder and the saddest. And because of the spelling of the word, we have to double the last letter. Sad has got one D, but sadder and the saddest are two D words. Okay, good. What about the next one? Okay, with tall, what happens? That's right. We don't need to worry about doubling the last letter because tall doesn't end in vowel plus consonant. Plus, any word with three L's would look really silly. So tall becomes taller and the tallest. Next, long. Again, we don't double anything. Long doesn't end in vowel plus consonant. So long becomes longer and the longest. Great, we're on fire. Just like the crazy world of Arthur Brown.
I am the god of hellfire, and I bring you fire. I think you to burn.
Okay, calm down, Arthur. Right, back to the adjectives. What's next? Ugly! Aha! Another adjective which ends with a Y, so we have to change the Y ending. And ugly becomes uglier and the ugliest. Good. Next, expensive. Another longer adjective. More syllables, so we change expensive to more expensive and the most expensive. Fantastic. And now, the two irregular adjectives, good and bad. Do you remember what's bad and what's worse? Yes, that's right. So good changes to better and the best, and bad changes to worse and the worst. And now, a very appropriate word to finish the exercise. Impressive. Your work is very impressive. And impressive in the comparative form is... That's right, more impressive. And in the superlative form? That's right again, the most impressive. You gods of English are the most impressive gods I know. And that's all we've got time for today. Yes, our time is up. So, until next time, remember that if you need some more English or want to look at our old lessons, go to m5tv.hu. I'm Gav Duncan. I'm still taller than Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I'm still much, much younger than Chuck Norris. I'm Gav Duncan, and I'll see you next week. See you later. Bye.